Well, in a moment, we're talking to Dr Nermine Mohamed Hassan in Cairo, who sits on Egypt's Foreign Relations Committee. But first, joining us from Tel Aviv is Gilad Sharon, a major in the Israeli Defense Force Reserves and son of the former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who, of course, is still alive but not conscious. Can I just start with you? Yes, Mr. Sharon, could I just start by asking you, in your article today in the mainstream Jerusalem Post, you distinguished between the truly innocent civilian residents of southern Israel and the residents of Gaza who are not innocent. Could you explain that?
The people of Gaza, they chose the Hamas regime with a very big majority. So if they chose a terror organization to be their leader and to take control over the Gaza Strip, they should bear the results of it.
So is that why in the same article you call for Gaza to be flattened?
Look, I don't think that any nation would tolerate its town being fired at. My children's school is often being fired. They have to lie on the grass when they're playing football when the rockets are going above. I don't think that the United Kingdom would tolerate it. I don't think any other nation would tolerate it. Look, we have no territorial dispute with the Gaza Strip, or let's call it the state of Gaza, because actually that's what it is. So we left the whole Gaza Strip. Why on earth would they fire at us? They could have it all. They could have made it the Hong Kong of the Middle East, but they chose, as usual, by the way, the terror way. And they, so now Gaza is more like Grozny, Chechnya, than what it could have been.
Well, let me just, sorry to interrupt that, but let me ask you a question. You drew the analogy with Britain, but Britain would not tolerate being imprisoned and cut off from supply in the way that Israel did right up until the Egyptian revolution. And even now, it is extremely difficult for people to travel in and out of the Gaza Strip into the areas in which they previously had access.
I disagree, because Gaza, they have also access to Egypt. They have a border with Egypt. So if the Egyptians are so full of willingness to help the people of Gaza, they can open their border. I mean, the same route that brings all the rockets and the ammunition and the explosive to the Gaza Strip can be the same gate for all the goods that we provide them. You know, that we provide the electricity to the Gaza Strip, and they fire, you can't believe it.
Yeah.
They actually fired at the very same power station which provide them electricity. Would you know any other nation that would tolerate that?
Well, would you know any other nation that would actually call for, as you have, the flattening, that is the destruction and killing of everybody who lives in a particular land?
I'm not calling to kill anyone. I wish they would not fire any rockets. But I mean, what would any other nation? Let's assume that the Cubans would fire at Miami. What do you think would happen to Havana?
You called for the same treatment as Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm quoting your article. You called for the flattening of Gaza, and you conjured the images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in which 100,000 people died. There are 1 million people in Gaza who would be in the path of such destruction.
No, this is not what I said. What I said, look, this is what a democracy like the United States did in order to achieve a victory. But we don't have to be, I mean, there's a full scale between what the American did and what we're doing. We're providing goods, we're providing fuel, we're providing food, electricity, water. So there is a full scale between those two ways of acting. And we don't have to be on the opposite side. There's still room in the middle.
Mr. Sharon, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, now, joining us now from Cairo is Nermine Mohamed Hassan, who is a member of the ruling Justice and Freedom Party and sits on Egypt's Foreign Relations Committee. Dr. Hassan, this surely is a very big test for Egypt, and Egypt so far is failing.
is failing. You said that Egypt is failing?
Yes.
Failing in what?
Failing to bring any kind of succor or defense for the beleaguered people of Gaza, with whom obviously you share a border.
Actually, we have to speak about a humanitarian crisis that's happening in Gaza. There is a big, extreme, aggressive use attacks that are done by Israel to the civilians in Gaza, to the children, to the women, to the civilians, and there is a collective punishment that is that's done to Gaza since 2006. Gaza is in an open-air prison in which there is 1.7 million people who are crowded in 140 square miles with economic blockade. Israel is controlling their air. They are preventing goods from reaching Gaza. We have a humanitarian crisis in Gaza according to the international reports. We are speaking about international reports, and now we are facing the same scenario that happened in 2008.
But what is Egypt doing about it? Egypt has a very strong armed force. It has an air force. It has a great deal of resource to certainly at least threaten Israel with. I mean, are these people just going to be left defenseless?
Okay, Egypt as people and the government are standing behind the civilians in Gaza who are facing this crisis, these aggressive attacks from Israel, and we are supporting them. We will offer all the humanitarian support to these civilians.
Well, excuse me for butting in, but is yes. Egypt telling the Hamas administration not to fire any more rockets into Israel because they are having no effect in Israel? I mean, they're missing their targets. They're being steered off by the defenses in Israel. What's the point of them continuing to antagonize the Israelis by firing these rockets?
Actually, it's something ridiculous or something, I'm sorry, it's something that is non-reasonable to compare a homemade missiles that are made very primitive as a way to defend themselves.
Some of them imported from Iran.
By aggressive. Imported from Iran. These are not true. This is not true, and the Israeli heavy weapons are used against civilian people, and is speaking about an equal war, while these people are using handmade and homemade very primitive weapons just to defend themselves. I think it's unfair, not fair to compare this comparison. And Israel is not attacking these people. They are attacking civilians in Gaza, and the number of murders in Gaza is increasing every hour.
Dr. Hassan,
we can yes,
I'm sorry,
okay.
but thank you very much indeed for joining us and for putting those points. Thank you very much for joining us from Cairo.
Okay, thank you.
Well, now later in the program, we'll be hearing from those on the ground in Israel. But now, Kathy.